Okay, so now we're going to move on to question 3. So like questions 1 and 2, question 3 will always be the same format. So in this case, the question is in lines 15 to 21, how does the writer use language and structure to show how the narrator's feeling of fear develops? Support your views with reference to the text. So you will always have a selection of text, and you will always have this idea of looking at language and structure to show something. It's really, really, really important that you talk about language and structure. If you only talk about language techniques, you will only get 2 marks. If you only talk about structure, you will only get 2 marks. And this question is worth 6 marks. So you need to make sure that you've written at least a paragraph on each of them. You have got a page in the answer book list to fill this out, but remember that it's quality, not quantity, that you write. If you write 2 really good paragraphs, one on language and one on structure, with quotes and with detailed explanations, you should be online to get those 6 marks. So please don't feel that you have to fill the booklet if you cover the key features. Again, it's 6 marks, so you can't be spending an awful lot of time on this, bearing in mind that you've got the 15-mark question coming up in question 4. Okay, so again, in lines 15 to 21, how does the writer use language and structure to show how the narrator's feelings of fear develop? Support your views with reference to the text. So again, I'm going to ask you to just make sure you know what bits of text you're looking at. So it's lines 15 to 21. Draw a box around those. You will see, and I've purposely used the same extract as we've gone along in the questions. I've now got quite a lot of different things on this paper. That's fine, because when you come to the last question, question 4, you will have done quite a lot of the hard work already with your highlighting, and you can refer back to those points in your answer. It doesn't matter if you're saying the same point in different questions. Often there'll be a different marker marking the different questions, and it's just important that you get the detail in there. So we're looking at language and structure, and we're looking at how the narrator's feelings of fear develop. Okay, so we're just going to recap that little bit. It says, as I stood, with a cry of terror, I was dashed at the alcove, then into the corner, and then into the window, relighting 3, as 2 more vanished by the fireplace. Then, perceiving a better way, I dropped the matches on the iron-bound dead box in the corner and caught up the bedroom candlestick. With this, I avoided the delay of striking matches, but for all the steady process of extinction went on, and the shadows I feared and fought against returned and crept in upon me. First a step gained on the side of me, and then on that. It was like a ragged storm cloud sweeping out of the stars. Okay, so that's the little bit of text we're looking at. It starts with a cry of terror. So we already know he's frightened right at the start because he's crying out in terror. However, this sentence is important. So we've got, with a cry of terror, I dashed at the alcove and then into the corner and then into the window, relighting 3, as 2 more vanished by the fireplace. Then, perceiving a better way, I dropped the matches on the iron-bound deed box in the corner and caught up the bedroom candlestick. So that is quite a long sentence, and it's written like a list. So that's helpful for us, isn't it, in terms of structure? So we've got a long sentence and it's written like a list, and it shows us that there's lots of action happening, and happening quite quickly. So if there's lots of action, it's happening quite quickly, he's sort of dashing around here and there, it adds to a feeling of being panicked or frantic. So as we read it, with a cry of terror, I dashed at the alcove, then into the corner, then into the window, relighting 3, as 2 more vanished by the fireplace. So we get the feeling that he's moving very quickly because he is frightened. It builds up this kind of sense of terror, this sense of fear, maybe even suspense, because he's running around. And the punctuation, the structure, helps to define that. So point 1, your structure point, could be that the opening sentence of that extract, that little bit of text, is a long sentence that is like a list, and that makes us know that the action happens very quickly and we feel very frantic, and so we can feel this sort of idea of building terror. So here I would put list, and I would put quick to remind myself. Okay, and then, so that's my structure point. Now really I'm looking for language, so I have a little quick scan, see what I can find. Right, okay, he's describing the shadows here, and he says, I feared and fought against. Okay, so With this, I avoided the delay striking matches, but for all the steady process of extinction went on, so the lights keep going out, and the shadows I feared and fought against returned and crept in upon me. So we've got feared and fought and crept. Okay, so if you're fighting something, you could say it's like the enemy, or you could use the word war, or you could talk about a battle. He feels that he's in a battle with the shadows, okay? And also we've got this idea of crept. Shadows can't creep, people creep, so we've got personification there. Okay, so the personification of the shadows makes it seem like they are at war with the narrator, and so adds to the feeling of fear. He's actually going to war against the darkness, against the shadows. And the personification, which is the language feature, helps to emphasise this. Okay, so it's like he's fighting against someone else, even though it's only the shadows. So there's our language point. Adds to his fear because he feels like he's at war, he feels like he's under threat. And then we've got another little thing we could throw in, because it then says it was like a raged storm cloud sweeping out of the stars. He's still describing that shadow, but what technique have we got there? We've got a simile. We've got a simile, and the simile is adding to this idea of nighttime and weather. Sweeping storm cloud. Ragged sweeping storm cloud. So we could say, well, hang on a minute, it's nighttime, it's dark, there's bad weather. Is that not a little bit of a case of pathetic fallacy, where the weather reflects the mood, and his mood is dark and his mood is frightening? So not only have we got this idea of structure, so we've got one point about structure and our lists, adding to how frantic he is and how his fear is growing. We've then got a point about personification of the shadows, because he's feared, fought against them like they're the enemy, and the shadows are crept in upon me. Then we've got this added bonus of the ragged storm clouds, which we could say one is a simile. We don't really get marks for just spotting techniques. You need to explain why they're effective. So we've got this dark, stormy weather coming in the night. And that hopefully will make you think of pathetic fallacy. And pathetic fallacy is when the weather reflects the mood of the piece. And the mood of this piece is turning more negative as we go along. It's becoming darker. His fear is increasing. And he feels like the enemy, in this case the shadows, are gaining on him. Okay, so 3 really clear points that you can use. Structure, you've got your sentence with lots of punctuation, lots of commas, so it seems like a list of things that he's doing, adds to the frantic nature of his behaviour. You've then got this idea of the personification of the shadows, so it's like he's at war with the shadows, he's actually in a battle. And then lastly, this simile that introduces also to the idea of pathetic fallacy, where the weather, dark, cloudy, is reflecting his mood, which is dark, cloudy and full of fear. So actually this idea of terror and fears is growing as we read through the piece. Okay, so try and get that written down. You've got 3 very clear points there. You could write 3 separate paragraphs, or you could have a paragraph on your structure or paragraph on your language features. But basically you're saying list for frantic action, increased fear, personification of the shadows so they become his enemy, and this idea of the weather, pathetic fallacy, reflecting his mood and his terror. Okay, give that a go. Again, in the pack that you've got that goes with this video, there's 5 different examples or 5 different question 3s that you can practice. They will always be the same. You will always have to write about language and structure. And if you only write about one, you will limit yourself to 2 out of the 6 marks. So it's important that you get both mentioned. Okay.